Greetings, comrades. Today we will talk about the most overrated, um, item in this country is the Apple iPod. And how is it overrated? Well, everyone or a large majority has it because, oh, my friend has it and I'm gonna get it because she has it and blah blah blah. Or maybe it's not that reason. Maybe it's because you're a dedicated Apple consumer. I don't mean consuming apples like a real life one, like a Macintosh. That's a breed, by the way. But, another thing about Apple is that their operating systems are just overrated. Just overrated, down the drain, overrated. There's these little uneducated people that are just trying to prove how an Apple is better than me. And guess what? They used the virus card. They're like, well, this Apple here, it has a tiny 5-inch screen. I shouldn't say 5, but it had a 15-inch screen. And it has this much memory, like 80 gigs, which is not a lot these days. And another thing is that it cost them over $1,000 to get this laptop. And the worst part is how they brag about the operating system. They're like, well, Apple's better. It comes with chess and a Mozilla Firefox that no one will care about. And it's just that Apple is like the type of people where they're like try to be different in their own little utopia, while we as the PC users, that's what they call us, the ones that use Microsoft. And that's another thing that irritates me, is that these Apple users come up to you, and if you don't have an Apple laptop or desktop, they will call you a PC user. And what gets me is that when they use the word PC, I'm like, wow. I didn't know I was back in 1983 where we called computers or desktops PCs, because that's an old term that's used back then, because back then there was only IBM and Apple. Now there's more than just those two these days. There's IBM, Sony, HP, Dell, Fujitsu, Daewoo. They used to make laptops. Few others like Packard Bell. And as I was saying about the Mac users, that they try to be different, but when you try to be different, there are consequences, and they face the consequences. Someone a few weeks ago needed help on their emulation system. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? They're like, well, blah blah blah, the Linux kernel wasn't compatible here, there, everywhere. I'm like, well, what OS are you using? Apple. I'm like, you're you're not gonna run any hacking software or anything real fun like emulations. Because I know, yes, there are emulators that are for Apple, but how many are there? Pretty few. And how good are they? Depends. There are some real good ones, but there are not too many good ones like Windows have. Oh yeah, something about Windows. I don't want to talk trash about Apple a lot. Now let's down talk Windows. Alright. So, as we all know that Windows is one of the most popular compatible operating systems widely used in public schools and everywhere else. And so, Windows has been one of the best-selling operating systems, yada yada yada. But what I want to talk about is, how did they fail? Well, Windows Vista was a big failure of all of them. I mean, I thought Windows ME, Windows ME is the number one failure of Microsoft. And Microsoft is lucky that I didn't rate Windows Vista as number one as the top 10 failure operating systems from Microsoft. Well, it's not a top 10, it's a top 5, because if there is more than 5 operating systems that fail from Microsoft, then I wouldn't even be using Microsoft right now. But as I was saying with Vista, is that Vista is nothing but a eye candy, eye catcher, noob canon operating system that it's just irritating how Bill Gates did not make it. I mean, Bill Gates made Windows XP, but he didn't make Vista. And that's one more thing I like to talk about is Bill Gates. What did he create? One of the greatest operating system series. I remember it back in the 90s. Windows 95, codenamed Chicago. It was one of my favorite operating systems. I mean, you could run lots of stuff. It was compatible. It had the best, wow, now I'm forgetting its specifications, but, I mean, yeah, these days it's like, ooh, who cares? But back then, it was like a Corvette. You can just run it at 180 without thinking twice. And Windows 98, aka blue screen of death, lol. It, last year I installed Windows 98 on the desktop behind me, and I was trying to install a USB device, and guess what? I got the blue screen of death. But it wasn't that bad. I mean, all I had to do is turn the computer off and turn it back on. And guess what happened? It run normal. That's right. Another thing I like to state about Apple is that the computer virus card is fading away. You can't avoid computer viruses, period. That's it. I mean, I don't care what OS you have, if it's Apple or Linux or something else. You can't avoid it. That's why there's something called antivirus software. I mean, that's the purpose there. I mean, if we didn't have viruses, that would just defeat the purpose of having an antivirus software. And yes, there are viruses for Apple, believe it or not. So maybe come out of that little cocoon and realize the real world Mac users that there is more than one operating system. Try out different operating systems. I tried out different ones, 95, 98, ME 2000, XP, Vista, and what else? Windows 7, let's see, and a few Apple operating systems like Leopard, and whatever, all those random ones from Apple are called. See you later.